Walk down any New York street in 1973, and you'd struggle to spot what we call obesity today. Photographs from that era reveal a startling truth. The average New Yorker was dramatically slimmer than their modern counterpart. This wasn't about gym memberships or diet trends. Something fundamentally different shaped how people ate, moved, and lived. The answer lies buried in Depression-era habits, immigrant food cultures, and a city that forced you to walk, whether you wanted to or not. Depression and war shaped eating forever. The Great Depression didn't end in 1939. It ended in people's minds decades later. By the 1970s, parents raising families in New York had grown up during the Depression or World War II rationing. Sugar, butter, meat remained precious in memory even when abundant in stores. Mothers who'd lived through genuine scarcity couldn't throw food away. Wasting leftovers felt criminal. Second helpings were questioned, not automatic. Italian grandmothers in Brooklyn, Jewish boobies on the Lower East Side, Irish mothers in the Bronx, they all carried forward attitudes about portion sizes forged through hardship. You ate what was on your plate. You didn't eat until stuffed. The concept of olukanit contradicted everything they'd internalized about moderation and gratitude. The subway made everyone walk. Car ownership in 1970s New York was maybe 40% of households, far lower than national averages. Most people relied entirely on the subway, and the subway meant walking. Lots of walking, not exercise. Just getting around. You walked to the station, down the stairs, through the platform, up more stairs at your stop, then to your final destination. A typical subway commute included a mile of walking, just getting to and from trains. Nobody thought about it as fitness. It was simply how you moved through the city. Add in walk-up apartments. 5-floor buildings with no elevators were standard in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem. Carrying groceries up 5 flights burned serious calories without trying. Children walked to school in groups, often covering a mile or more twice daily. Adults walked to bodegas, to work, to visit friends. The accumulated movement throughout ordinary days created baseline activity modern sedentary lifestyles can't match. Immigrant mothers cooked everything from scratch. Convenience foods existed in 1970, but they cost more than raw ingredients. Italian mothers made pasta and sauce from scratch. Jewish families bought whole chickens and stretched them across multiple meals. Chinese families stir-fried fresh vegetables every night. Puerto Rican mothers made rice and beans that fed everyone. Cooking from scratch meant hours of work peeling potatoes, chopping vegetables, monitoring stovetop for extended periods. This labor-intensive process naturally limited portion sizes because making more food meant more work. Ready meals and microwaves barely existed. Fast food chains hadn't colonized every corner. McDonald's existed, but eating there cost real money for working-class families. The default setting for dining was your own kitchen table with food made that day from recognizable ingredients. Mothers passed cooking skills between generations like family heirlooms. Sugar was expensive. Not everywhere the 1970s saw sugar at prices that made it something to use carefully. Baking a cake for Sunday meant using your sugar wisely. Sweets remained treats given on Saturdays, or as rewards, not constant snacking options. Soft drinks existed but occupied far less household spending. Children drank water, milk, or weak juice, diluted to make bottles last. Coca-Cola was a birthday party luxury, not a daily beverage. The concept of drinking hundreds of calories without noticing didn't exist in most homes. Coffee came black or with minimal sugar for adults who learned to drink it that way during rationing. Breakfast cereals were cornflakes or shredded wheat, not frosted chocolate-coated confections. Food manufacturers hadn't yet engineered products to trigger overconsumption through calculated sugar-salt-fat ratio. Plates were smaller, portions normal. Restaurant plates in the 1970s would look small to modern diners. A standard dinner plate measured 9 inches across compared to 12 or larger today. Serving someone a 16-ounce steak would have seemed wasteful and bizarre. Meat appeared as part of the meal, not the main event, with vegetables and starches filling most plate space. Home cooking followed similar proportions. A chicken fed a family of 4 across 2 meals roasted one night. Leftovers in soup the next. Stretching ingredients reflected both economy and cultural attitudes about greed versus moderation. Taking seconds happened but casually grazing through multiple servings wasn't normalized. The supersize culture that would later sweep across America hadn't yet arrived. Normal meant enough to satisfy hunger, not enough to create discomfort. Nobody snacked all day. The concept of constant eating throughout the day was virtually unknown in 1970s New York. You ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner with perhaps a small snack after school for kids. Between meal, eating raised eyebrows and invoked warnings about spoiling your appetite. Bodegas didn't contain the arrays of chips, crackers, and processed snacks that would later become standard. Children received pocket money measured in quarters, limiting candy purchases to weekends. Chocolate bars were smaller and less common. Workplaces didn't feature vending machines on every floor. The 24-hour eating culture where food availability never ceases simply didn't exist. Stores closed at reasonable hours, shutting down evening impulse. By this limited accessibility naturally restricted consumption. Manual labor jobs everywhere. Manufacturing and heavy industry still employed hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers in jobs requiring physical exertion. The garment district, shipping docks, construction sites, factories. These sectors demanded bodies in motion for 8 or more hours daily. Even office jobs involved more movement. No email meant walking documents between floors. Filing required standing, reaching, bending. Manual typewriters demanded more physical effort than computer keyboards. Household chores required serious work. Washing machines were basic. Vacuum cleaners were heavy beasts that demanded pushing and pulling. Cleaning meant genuine physical labor. Children played outside after school, running around neighborhoods in games that would look unsupervised now. Television existed but offered only a few channels with limited hours, forcing people toward more active pastimes. The 1975 fiscal crisis changed everything in 1975. New York City nearly went bankrupt. Ford II City, drop dead, captured the federal government's refusal to help. The city lost 500,000 manufacturing jobs between 1969 and 1976. Unemployment hit 10%. Nearly 1 million people fled to suburbs. Economic anxiety made people conservative about consumption. Those who'd lived through genuine scarcity during the Depression now faced another crisis. You didn't casually overindulge when the city was falling apart and jobs were disappearing. The boom boost psychology shaped eating habits, with excess viewed as tempting fate. Food represented a much larger percentage of household spending, typically 25 to 30% compared to 10 to 15% today. With tighter budgets, families couldn't afford waste. You bought what you needed, planned meals carefully, ate everything purchased. Walk-ups forced daily exercise. The vertical nature of New York created mandatory exercise. Walk-up apartments meant climbing 4 or 5 flights of stairs multiple times daily, carrying groceries, laundry. Children up those stairs burned hundreds of calories weekly, without thinking about fitness. Tenement buildings dominated working-class neighborhoods. No elevators, no shortcuts, just stairs. Every single day. This was an optional exercise you could skip. It was simply how you got home. The accumulated stair climbing across years created leg strength and cardiovascular fitness as a side effect of living. Social pressure was direct weight gain, attracted common in ways considered inappropriate today. Doctors bluntly told patients to lose weight. Family members felt free to observe that UD gained a few pounds with expectation. UD address it. This wasn't kindness, but it created social pressure toward maintaining weight. Fashion reinforced these expectations. Clothing came in limited size ranges. If you gained weight, you often couldn't find clothes that fit rather than stores stocking larger sizes. This created practical feedback where gaining weight meant wardrobe difficulties. What changed the slimness of 1970s New Yorkers wasn't about superior willpower. It reflected a completely different food environment and way of life. Walking everywhere because of the subway, climbing stairs in walk-ups, immigrant mothers cooking from scratch, limited processed foods, smaller portions, minimal snacking, manual labor jobs, economic constraints from the fiscal crisis. All of these combined to create calorie balance without conscious effort. The modern obesity epidemic doesn't represent personal failure. It shows how dramatically our food systems and daily routines have transformed in just 50 years.